Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Mainstream Indie Music channel. Yes, we do talk about indie music. However, from time to time, as you probably even noticed the last video to this, we focus on the pop punk category. I mean, hey, blame it on my background. That was around the time that I was raised in my teenage years and early 20s, was this explosive era of pop punk. You have to remember the time frame. In the early 2000s, we had just come out of the grunge era. You know, sadly, bands like Nirvana were no more. Bands like the Foo Fighters were just starting up. Rock music in general and its identity was starting to shift. The 90s had brought out ska again, and ska was slowly starting to fade away after the early 2000s as well. With that was the rise of something new, and it was blending a lot of different topics. One of the biggest things that it was doing was it was starting to focus on not just the idea and concept of lost love, which a lot of those early pop punk bands did. Definitely, don't get me wrong, they did still do that. But they were also starting to write about mental health. And I would definitely give major props to Chester Bennington with Linkin Park. I would say him, Chris Cornell, really led the way in doing that. But it was just kind of shifting the overall tone of music. Now, today's musician that we're focusing on, Justin Pierre, did not shy away from that. In fact, he heavily leaned on that new topic. It was almost a coping mechanism for him, in that with his own bouts of depression, anxiety, and then, as we're going to talk about today, leading to heavy alcohol addictions, Justin was no stranger to the feeling of having mental health that went up and down constantly. And Motion City Soundtrack was the instrument that got him going with that venture. So we're not going to spend too much time about the history of Motion City per se. This is more so on Justin. Justin was born and raised around a suburb of Minneapolis, Minnesota, and he liked the concept of art in general. In fact, he did try music, and he even tried to lean into the indie alternative style of music first, but he kind of just realized that wasn't really for him. And while going to college, he even started to study a little bit into film and filmmaking. Now, the early days of Motion City were very difficult for, really, essentially, it was a two-man band at the time of the Motion City with other random members playing in. You know, Justin would mention the bad part about growing up even in a small Midwest town was there was really nowhere to play. You know, you think of places just like First Avenue, that was pretty much it. You know, you had your local, dives and so on and so forth, but Justin would comment on it was just difficult to kind of break out from the numerous bands trying to get their shot at the chance to get their big break. And so what they decided to do as Motion City was they had to tour elsewhere. They had to go to different parts of the United States. And to do that, as you can imagine, they would have to take long stretches off of their jobs. You know, they would have to use a lot of vacation time to go and tour and then come back. One of my favorite stories is when they were first forming the band, they really wanted to use the keyboard and the Moog synth. But the issue with that was they had a huge fan who wanted to join their band, and that was Jesse Johnson. And they quickly realized that Jesse actually did not know even how to play the keyboard. And so the two of them sat down with him and essentially just showed him how to play the parts right there on the spot. This was even done, I would say, less than 2 weeks before they sat down to make their very first album. But I mean, hey, you listen to I'm the Movie, and I mean, hey, it is a fantastic album. Motion City, because of their hard work and dedication of continuing to tour, eventually got their slot on the Warped Tour and was noticed by Mark Hoppus of Blink-182. Mark liked the band so much in what they were doing that he decided to produce probably their biggest breakout album to this day, Commit This to Memory, which had their hit song, Everything Is All Right, on it. It was around this period of time while they put together the album Commit This to Memory that cracks in the armor of Justin was starting to happen. His mental health was starting to slip a little bit, kind of fueled by a breakup and the crazy lifestyle that they were living. You know, they were constantly on tour. In fact, there was one year that they said that they played close to 270 shows that year. It's just absolutely insane. Blink-182 liked them a lot. They offered to take them on tour. They were part of the Warped Tour act of the early 2000s. They were almost deemed a must-see amongst that tour. It just seemed like things were going amazing for Motion City, and they were rewarded for it. Everything Is All Right is still to this day their biggest hit and their most recognizable hit. But things were to change coming up. If you have not seen my video on the making of their next album, Even If It Kills Me, please do, because that video fully explains this period of time. But long story short, Even If It Kills Me was not produced by Mark Hoppus. It was produced by Fountains of Wayne and the Cars band members, Rick and Adam. And it was just a huge honor for them to do that, but Justin sadly suffered from a severe case of writer's block, and his addictions came full steam ahead. He had to join a rehab program to get clean before they could even go on the road, which was their longest time apart. The good news is, despite those bumps in the road, Justin and Motion City returned back and better than ever. Yes, they did go on a brief hiatus in the late 2010s, but especially during the COVID pandemic, when they lost several close producers close to them, they decided to give it another shot. They released a new album in 2025, and they continue to record and make music right in Minnesota as a band. The future looks good for them. They found pretty much their audience, and Justin seems very happy right now. So good news on this video, and hey, I'll see you guys next week. Peace.